Good day, beloveds. So, a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago now, geez, I don't know. I had put out there in a live Ask Courtney Anything video about how the human mind cannot take on as much news as we're bombarded with, right? And so I invited everybody to just choose like two big topics that you're into and just follow that. And then, I realized people I don't think were really understanding what I was talking about. But then it came to me that it's because they were already doing that. So when I think about like the news, because I don't see any separation, when I'm thinking about we can't handle it, is I'm thinking all the news about AI from all of the countries, all of the political stuff from all of the countries, all of the social stuff from all of the countries, all of the everything. There's no difference between like myself and a woman in a tribe down in South America. What's going on with her? There's nothing different between me and some fella in Kenya. What's going on with him? So that's what I meant by that is we cannot take on all of the news from every continent, of every country, of everything. Could you imagine that? All of the deaths, all of the AI, all of the wars, all of the everything. So that's where I was coming from. And I was like, why are people confused? Well, it's because they were already doing, because most people only focus on a few things anyways. And it's because most people are not thinking how everything is connected. Everything is connected. So let me kind of use a rant as an example, and I'm going to focus in on like just the states here, right? Because it's easier for me to rant about what's in the states. As to how everything is connected. So what's going on over here? What's going on over there? What's happening with these particular laws affect the laws of other things? Affect the laws of other things? All sorts of stuff. Everything is connected. That's why we're we wouldn't just be able to like end something, solve all these problems all at once because it filters into the, you know, macro and micro of everything. So, okay, I somebody the other day I was talking to and they made some comment about how they would love if this school system would teach kids, how to farm, how to sew, how to finance, how to cook, all this sort of stuff. And which is it's a very common argument. We'll see a bunch of memes out there, wishing that our educational system would teach the kids this stuff. Um, and then I threw another argument back and went, well, why aren't the parents? Like maybe that's not a part of the school situation. Maybe that should be a parent situation. But here's the reason why this is difficult. Because I think the majority of us would love for things like that to be taught to our kids, right? It's That's not the thing. It's whose responsibility. So a lot of laws, a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions, it's a symbol of passing the buck, passing the responsibility. It seriously is. And that's why everything is connected. So everybody wants this in our school system. And then the other side of the argument is why aren't the parents teaching them? Well, then the argument could be played into because the parents are already working so much to pay for the taxes for the schools that the kids are already going to, on top of the laws of child labor laws that, a 16-year-old in high school can only work like 12 hours a week here in the States. So they're not able to contribute to a household that also probably needs to buy that kid a car. So now the parents are working two or three jobs to pay for the taxes for the schools where they are right now. So if we added more curriculum to them, that's even more taxes, which means even more work for the parents, which means even less. opportunities to be with your kids, to teach your kids, right? So this is all connected. Now, here's an interesting little side note because it's also connected. So, in the northern states of the US, I don't know about the South, it is a law that the furnace, the heat of one's house, has to be able to get to 68 degrees. That's a law. Now, why did we create this law? Because we're not going to be able to um, ensure that everyone has enough blankets to get through a cold winter. So we make it a law that if that furnace can't get to 68 degrees, they can call their landlord, they can do this, da da da, what have you, to ensure that that person can stay warm. We made a law. I know this will all track. So we made a law because we can't ensure that our neighbor is going to have enough blankets to stay warm, so they can just call and get it fixed. Okay. We're not checking on our neighbors because now we're working 2 or 3 jobs to pay for the taxes, to pay for the education, and our kids can't contribute either, and they have needs. They have a lot of needs. You ever feed a growing boy? Right. So, okay, we can't do it. We're going to pass the buck to a law that says I don't have to check on my neighbor. Now we have to make it mandatory that it can get to 68 degrees. Okay. Which is also interesting because energy, that plays into energy now, right? Follow, track. So now everybody's talking about the different medical aspects that are going on here in the States as far as insurance aspects. I feel you, folks. We all do. We're all feeling it. It might not be the insurance that's the problem, it's probably the cost of medical treatment. But we're all going to accept the cost of medical treatment because we're terribly afraid of being sick and possibly dying or a loved one or what have you. So we accept that taking an MRI, that is not new technology, but yet it might cost $1,000 to $2,000 cash money to get that MRI when it's not new technology. They're going to tell you the reason that it costs so much is because the energy needed to run the machine. So now we're paying a lot of money for not new technology. We're accepting that. We get angry at the insurance, which now we definitely have to have a decent job or even more money to maybe work in 2 jobs to pay for the school taxes, to pay for the insurance now. So if there is an MRI needed, we can use the energy that is there, and we use the energy to also warm our neighbor because it's by law 68 degrees, or needs to be. This is all in a system that is everything connected. So, from the school system of not, should they teach our kids, should they not teach our kids? Should they teach our kids all these fundamental things that we would love for them to learn, but yet we don't have the time and effort to do it because we're working so hard to cover all this other stuff? Which then leads us to not be able to teach our kids how to knit a blanket to go ask the neighbor, are you going to be warm? Here's a blanket. Which then leads to, oh, we're going to pay whatever we need to get the medical treatment that costs a fortune, that is using the energy that could be cheaper if we didn't have to be at 60 degrees in the winter time. We just had more blankets. We just had more blankets, and we actually checked in on our fellow neighbors and humans. You need some soup? You need some blankets? Hey, my 16-year-old that doesn't work or do anything really, they could knit you a blanket because I taught them. Do you understand? So, from school system to individuals to medical care to other individuals to, is it our responsibility? Is it the organization's responsibility? Is it a law? Is it a law to pass the buck that we don't check in on our neighbor? And so be it if their furnace doesn't get to 68. then you invite them into your home for a few nights during the deep cold. But that energy needs to be there because it's by law, because I'm not going to be able to have the time to go check on them, which then makes an MRI expensive as hell. And who knows, I might need that one day, so I'm going to accept all of this. That is just a very random rant in my head to break down how all of this is connected. From the very little, hey, old lady, why don't you come stay with us a few nights? It's real flippin' cold out there, and I know your furnace can't get to 68 degrees. Um, to passing the buck to, no, it's a law. I don't have to check on you because I'm going to be working so hard anyways. And then pass the buck to the schools. Hey, can you teach the kid all the stuff that I should be teaching them? Because I'm going to be working to pay the taxes to pay you, and to pay more for the medical insurance, to cover the high-ass costs for the medical treatments. And all the while, I'm just going to assume my neighbor is warm, because I don't got time to handle all that. Every organization, every law, everything it filters into the individuals, the big grand scale, all of it, and all of it is connected. And then what is connected here is connected elsewhere. Elsewhere. All the countries, all the continents, everything is connected. And so when I say, just grab a couple of things to, I don't know, pay attention to in the news, because we're human and we want to know what's going on with our fellow man, go for it. But it is literally impossible to pay attention to all the news. The little news article about how grandma was not warm enough in her apartment building because of a crappy landlord, you're going to miss that one. But yet it's connected. So, we're not going to be able to handle it all. That's what I mean by this. That most of the laws, most of the institutions, most of everything is designed to pass the buck. And we pay attention because we want these bucks fixed. We want everything to be working in conjunction with one another in peace, love, and harmony. We do. But when one thing's jacked up over here, it means it's jacked up over here. It means it's jacked up over there. It means that because it has to be 68 degrees, we're now paying $2,000 for an MRI. It's bigger than people think. And so have compassion with yourself and others, because it's not going to be fixed by one or two simple solutions. And it's our personal integrity and responsibility to fix things by one-on-one. One-on-one. Check if your neighbor needs a blanket. Teach your kids how to knit blankets. One-on-one. One-on-one. That's how change truly happens. Because change starts in the mind, and everything is communication. So I love y'all. That was a little bit of a rant for me to say, do you pay attention to what you want to do or what you want to pay attention to in the news? But when I am speaking, I am always focused and concentrated on the all, not just a pocket of people, not just the United States, not just the all. Everything is connected. And so if you need to know where I'm coming from, that's where I'm coming from. That is impossible for us to watch everything and witness everything. But if I were to feel as if I needed to, like, let's say I watch the news, that's going to lead into what's happening over here, over here, over here, over there, all of it. Because everything is connected. Everything's connected. Everything. Cost of medical, AI, what's happening with grandma and the landlord, educational system, parents working too much, child labor laws that are kind of ridiculous. Um, all of it, all of it, all of it. So, beloveds, keep doing you, do as you wish, but try to think of that there is no simple, quick solution to anything because it is the macro and micro of every thread of every law, institution, country, continent, human being. And it starts with us human beings, one on one communication, change the mindset, and it can happen with compassion for self to others. Self compassion for self and others, learn, teach, grow. That's where the big difference is. Love you guys. Peace.